Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the next in our series of some webinars from the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition. This time, the topic being planning civics K-12 with We the People. My name is Dave Buchanan. I'm the Director of Massachusetts Programs with iCivics. I was a former teacher years ago and also worked at the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for many years as well. But I do want to just take a moment particularly to thank all of you teachers who are joining us this afternoon, and certainly glad to have everybody else with us as well. But particularly a salute to all of you who are currently teaching these days and have made your way through this rather difficult winter, both in terms of the weather and in terms of COVID. So thank you so much for all the work that you do with our students every year and every day. Really appreciate that, both as a professional myself and also as a parent. So thank you very much. For today, quite obviously, this session is being recorded. And as you know from other sessions as well, it works better if everybody stays on mute until we have an opportunity to speak. So if you would do that, I would certainly welcome you to include any comments or questions as we do the presentation this afternoon. We will have a time at the end of the session for those questions, and you're welcome to include those in the chat as we go along. So as I said, I am with the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition. Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition came together almost 4 years ago now, particularly to champion the cause of civic education here in Massachusetts. It's comprised now of over 40 organizations, nonprofits, school districts, individuals, youth groups, and research institutions that are all invested in improving the quality of civic education here in the Bay State. So we have a number of successes that I think you're probably familiar with, most particularly the passage of the Civics Law in 2018. That includes a requirement for civics projects, among other things. And we've been very successful also in gaining and maintaining a good stream of funding, both for grants and for other professional activities through the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And we're continuing to push on additional issues to support this mission and hope that some of you will consider actually joining us in that as well. So I do want to highlight the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition has our own site, and I am going to include here in the chat a list of links for today's session. This includes all the links and all the materials that you'll be hearing about in the course of today's presentation. Among them are links to the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition site. And most particularly, I want to highlight there that we have a number of resources that we put together over the last couple of years to address many different topics in civic learning. Most particularly, I want to draw your attention, however, to the Massachusetts Civic Learning Week. We are hosting the second annual event of that this year, March 7th through 11th. So it's coming right up next month. And it's really is an opportunity to take advantage of a host of different presentations by professional organizations, by students themselves, and by many community organizations as well, all focused on various issues related to civic education, right from focusing on free speech to student speech, to teaching strategies, making use of local community resources, addressing equity and anti-racist education, Indigenous history, and there's even an opportunity in a couple of the sessions actually to meet a judge as well. So a whole range of different activities. They are scheduled through the day as well as after the school day. So we're hoping that some teachers may involve students in some of these sessions during the course of the school day, in addition to participating in some of those events afterwards as well. And certainly members of the general public are welcome as well, of course. And certainly hope that you'll take advantage of that. So there is a link to all of the registration information and all the offerings we have lined up for Massachusetts Civic Learning Week in that list of links that I just mentioned, and certainly hope you'll take advantage of that. So we base the topics for these webinars on the needs identified particularly through a recent study that was done by Circle based at Tufts University, by the Wheelock School of Education at BU, and the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And that was a really extensive study about the state of civic education here in Massachusetts. And there were a number of recommendations that came out of that study, most particularly focusing on the need to refocus our attention and reignite our attention toward high needs districts, to address the needs of teachers in the elementary grades, to shore up the support for administrators, and to ensure that we're really providing an equitable and accessible, equal access to high quality civic education for all students across the grades. And you'll see that we've had webinars on a number of those different topics tied into addressing those issues. And of course, this one is particularly focused on addressing the needs and the challenges of addressing civics K-12. So how do we do that from kindergarten and even pre-K up to grade 12? So we'll be digging into that in this session. So the format for today is that you'll soon be not hearing from me any further. I'll be passing the baton on to Roger Desrosiers, who's the director of the Massachusetts Civic Learning Civic Center for Civic Education. And he will do the introductions for the team of folks that he has assembled to be part of the presentation today. We'll do that presentation for about 45 minutes, and then we will have time at the very end to take questions and have some discussion with all of you. So Roger, I will just pass it on to you, but before I do that, I just want to take note of the fact that we the people, that the Mass Center for Civic Education is representing here, has been a real standby for educators for many, many years. I remember in my own teaching experience that I used those materials years back. And I think similarly, you yourself have become a real stalwart and a real major foundation for civic education here in Massachusetts. And in some ways, we might even think of you as sort of the founding parent for the current phase and current renewed interest in civic education here in Massachusetts because of your long campaign and efforts to bolster civic education here in the state of Massachusetts. So I'll leave it at that and pass it to you, and hope that you can lead on into introductions for the rest of the folks who have joined us this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, David. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to work with you and your organization and many of the other organizations at MCLC. My name is Roger Desrosiers. I'm president of Mackey and also the state coordinator for the We the People, the Citizen, and the Constitution. And I welcome all of our presenters to introduce themselves. Victoria.
Good afternoon. My name is Victoria Mulkern. I'm the Director of Literacy and Title I in the Malden Public Schools, and we're partnering along with Malden Reads with the We the People program for our 4th grade pilot. So thank you all this afternoon for being here.
Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Stahl, and I'm thrilled to pay because many years ago I worked with Roger when we set up Enter, and we did We the People, and we saw the major impact it made. So as a educator that has been working for many, many years, we have now joined with the Malden Public Citizen and Democracy First Edition with the wonderful community-based program in addition to the great.
Okay, Kiana.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Kiana Johnson. I am a 8th grade as well as a high school teacher of civics. And I am just so excited to be here with all of you. And I just love this program. So welcome.
Jennifer.
Hi, my name's Jen Orlinsky. I'm the Social Studies Department Chair for the Norwood Public Schools. I do primarily grades 6 through 12, but I'm helping with the K-5 realignment. And what I've learned is that we are using We the People a lot throughout all of that, and I'm excited to share that with you today.
John?
Hi, I'm John Dixon. I teach civics at Project Citizen and sorry, I teach civics at Monterey Regional High School, and I'll be discussing the 8th grade civics project and our use of Project Citizen to meet that requirement.
And Kathy?
Hi, and welcome. My name is Kathy Lindquist, and I'm a recently retired high school English teacher. And I piloted Project Citizen as a unit-based project in the high school. And I'll be talking about how, because of the good foundation in the middle school, that you can have civics projects outside of the social studies classroom.
And Gorman?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gorman Lee. I currently serve as the K-12 Director of Social Studies for the Braintree Public Schools. And I also currently serve as the 8th Congressional District Coordinator for the We the People program here in Massachusetts. And I'll be talking a little bit about what we're planning in Braintree in regards to We the People and Project Citizens and how we tied it to the Civics project.
Very good. And before we start, if Linda, if you could get your camera, okay, to get your face in here, we'd love to see you. It's a little bit, there we go.
1 minute.
Awesome, thank you. So this is our agenda for the day, and we're going to go through that as efficaciously as we can. And greetings to all. As administrators and teachers, you are bombarded with numerous mandates from the state and federal governments with educational and SEL and UDL research and a plethora of decision-making that will impact the students and teachers that you serve in your school district, your school, and your department. The outcomes are often measured by scores on state-administered tests, school committee policies, and parental inquiries. One of the outcomes that are rarely assessed is the kind of student that graduates or filters through your time of teaching and administration. The History and Social Science Framework, approved in June 2018, urges school districts to provide a civic education thread throughout the PK through grade 12 student experience. Yes, there are specific areas where civic education content is required. However, the importance of developing and nurturing civic skills and fostering civic dispositions ought to be of paramount outcome for all students during their elementary and secondary education. There are lots of literacy programs, civic-specific programs, value education learning, and educational resources available to assist you in delivering the values and skills necessary for students to develop the important student skills that will make them better students in all subject areas. Emphasizing these areas at an early age will create a better school's climate and an atmosphere within your school system. Our programs are simply one example of many resources that are available to help you do this for your school district to your smaller units, such as a social studies department. Mackey is largely an organization for the We the People programs in Massachusetts since 2015. We support the We the People, the Citizen, and the Constitution, which has been in Massachusetts schools since 1987, and Project Citizen since 1993. The Center for Civic Education offers a storybook series that emphasize important civic values that early educators look to help students recognize important interpersonal as well as individual characteristics as they grow. As you can see, These books are large enough for a large group of students to engage with visually as well as to hear well. Each of these storybooks are accompanied with activity books which allow further depth in the areas of justice, authority, responsibility, and privacy. There are many other resources where character education and important skills that students need to learn at a young age that can be fostered at this level, thus providing a civic base for them. An introduction for students regarding the need for government starts in grades 3 through 5 with the We the People, the Citizen, and Democracy. This new text explores the first introduction to rules and laws through cartoons and pictures that allow students to see familiar scenes that reflect aspects of government, but now they can put that into a perspective of why that is important to them. At the Malden Public Schools, this edition of the We the People text will be piloted this spring in collaboration with a community organization called Malden Reads. Please welcome Victoria and from the Malden Public Schools, followed by Linda Zalk from Malden Reads to explain their plan.
Thank you so much, Roger. Hello again. So I'm here to speak as an administrator on behalf of the Malden Public Schools, and we are so excited to be here and to promote this partnership and this program. So for a little background, the Malden Public Schools, with a total of approximately 6,300 students, is one of the most diverse public school districts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In 2020, the Boston Indicators identified Malden High School as the most diverse high school in the state, with a 76% diversity index rate, far surpassing the state average of 60%. In addition to our high school, 2 of our K-8 schools in the city were ranked in the top 25 most diverse schools in the Commonwealth. One of these highlighted schools is the Salemwood K-8, which is the selected school for our partnership with the MACCE and the We the People project. The Salemwood School is the largest K-8 school in Malden, serving just under 1,000 students. The school also is home to our district's largest English learner population, as 72.4% of students identify a first language other than English. Salemwood proudly boasts its mascot as the shark because, as a student once explained, sharks are always moving forward. This positive, diverse environment provides us with an optimal setting to pilot the We the People program. We are fortunate to have 2 teachers from our sheltered English immersion 4th grade program at the Salemwood K-8 enthusiastically commit to bringing this wonderful program to their students, almost all of whom have recently arrived in the US within the last 1 to 2 years. Knowing that we had such a diverse population at the Salemwood, and especially within this cohort of 4th graders, we recognize how important it is to provide our educators with tools to provide civic education to our young students. Instead of waiting until students reach middle and high school, where social anxiety and expectations are high, we feel the later elementary years are a perfect age to immerse students in inquiry-based learning around the topics of identity, democracy, and citizenship. The We the People program, with its easily accessible materials and vivid images and graphics, is an ideal medium in which to convey the ideas of rights, responsibilities, and the role of government to our newest Malden students, just as they are learning what it means to live in this country. By having open, safe spaces to engage in inquiries around what their role in a democracy is, how that might be different from the country from which they are coming, and how they can use their voice to make a difference, students will hopefully take away values that will catapult them into deeper learning in their later school years. Additionally, the Malden Public Schools has worked with Malden Reads for 12 years now. Our collaborative effort as partners will enhance the students' learning experience. As a district level administrator, I truly hope to use this pilot program as a springboard to deeper and more extensive conversations about civics, citizenship, and democracy with our young students. Especially here with our population in Malden, it is so important that we are constantly searching for new and creative means by which to instill civic values and promote social justice, equity, and fairness into our students. We look forward to seeing this project come to life this spring with our 2 amazing teachers and 17 fourth graders. Thank you.
Go ahead, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Zoll, and as you heard, I represent the Malden Reeds, and we really love doing all of the activities with the school system, and we meet their needs, such as last year, we provided 2,000 books, Born a Crime by Trevor Noah for the high school. And we try to hear everybody's story, and we relate it to the youngsters as well as our diverse population that lives in the community. So we're always making connections between the school system and our community. And so as you hear, we're a community-based organization that celebrates reading and literacy, and we showcase our resources, and we do connect our community. We have anchor organizations, the Malden Public Library and the Malden Access TV, also known as UMA. So we always select appropriate books, and this year we have a wonderful plethora of books for the community, but I would like to focus on DESE and We the People and how we are going to be implementing our 4th grade pilot program. We are going to be meeting bi-weekly. The first week, we will be working with the teachers. They will be trained by the We the People, Roger and others that will be working directly with the teachers. We will set up learning stations that will have activities to reinforce the concepts. We have selected 5 of the chapters that look at democracy, that look at equity, and you'll see one of our examples in analyzing graphics, such as the graphics that we are providing will represent the concepts that we see in the actual We the People, Citizen and Democracy, but we are also doing analyzing graphics and letting students create their own images. And when we meet, we will have community representatives who will share their stories. And so we found out the predominant numbers of students, such as students from Haiti, from Brazil, from many other countries. So we have representatives from these countries to share their stories. We will have authors, we will have videos, we will do simulations, we have readers theater, and books on tape. So this is one of the graphics that we would be using to have youngsters analyze a law, so that when they have learned the experience and have had all these opportunities on week 1, then we will have opportunities to look at these themes, and we will have total participation with the students. The schools are going to have the teachers reinforcing everything, and we are also having the social worker when we're doing discussions, journal writing. We have our literacy coaches involved in this. So we're really excited about this program. So thank you for this opportunity to let us share. And there's just one thing I want you to know. You don't have to use the same program as we're doing, but this would be a template to tailor programs for your own needs at each local level. But if you collaborate with your educators and your community work, it becomes a wonderful experience. So looking forward to seeing everybody later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria and Linda. We look forward to working with you and your teachers this spring. The three We the People texts, one for grade 5, grade 8, and for a high school elective in American government per the history and social science framework of 2018, fit well for the civic education requirements set by the DESE. The features of the We the People are inquiry-based, a focus on the history of ideas, not simply facts, and each lesson has at least a couple of interactive activities which can be individualized or group activities. For example, you see an activity where students learn about the Massachusetts Constitution and its emphasis on education, and ask students questions like, should all children be required to attend school? Well, each of the We the People levels offer students age-appropriate understanding about their government and its principles and values. The grade 8 table of content shows the inquiry method, as the table of contents shows how each unit and lesson is in the form of a question, but even each section of a lesson, as well as every caption of a picture and cartoon, is in a form of a question. The grade 8 civics course is supported by the We the People Level 2 text for 6 of the 7 topics. Another assessment tool used by teachers is the simulated congressional hearing. Here to speak to that is Kiana Johnson from the Springfield Public Schools. Kiana?
Thank you very much. And again, welcome to everyone that is present. One of the things that's really shifted my teaching with the 8th grade civics curriculum is participating in the simulated congressional hearing. What I usually do is I introduce it to my students in the beginning of the year by showing them visually what it's going to look like to do a hearing. Most of them have never experienced any sort of school-based activity such as the hearing, and so it's great for them to see it visually. Then I walk them through the steps, and one of the things that I have noticed is that as we are preparing for the simulated hearing, we use a diversity of text. We do use within our learning the We the People textbook, so I do use that as well. I also use a variety of primary and secondary sources, as well as current events to help their presentations. And so when the students begin to work on their presentations within teams to answer those focused questions, it has challenged me to make sure that my students are thinking more critically in their learning. I've also noticed that it helps our students to begin to collaborate more because they are working together as a team. They have to learn to have responsibility to delegate certain aspects of their presentations, but it also helps our students to start to develop their public speaking skills. And many times 8th graders are comfortable with speaking with one another, but when it comes to making a presentation, sometimes they don't necessarily have that confidence. And through this presentations, the students gain that public speaking confidence. But one of the most important things that I've noticed as well is that it answers that question that all students have: why am I learning this? When they participate in the hearing, the students find out that they know exactly why they are learning that content, but not only what they're learning, but how that content is being applied and how it's relevant to their personal lives. And I can remember through one of my students, when they were participating in the hearing, that they were asked, how does one branch of government check another branch? And my student, who is Muslim American, her response was giving the evidence of how the court system was able to initially to Trump's Muslim ban that he initially wanted to set forth in the country. And so she was able to give that as an example. But one of the best things that I've noticed with my students is that it helps to definitely build up their character. I have noticed that my students walk away, they are confident, their self-esteem is through the roof, and they feel so accomplished. I have heard over and over by my students, right after they finish, they want to do it again. And I actually had a young student one year that said, I can't wait to get to high school, because when I get to my high school, I want to be a part of the high school We the People competition. And so I highly recommend for all the civic teachers that are online, the administrators, that this program is wonderful. And it does its job in teaching our students how to be citizens, but also they now learn the content, but now they have some sort of application. They apply it through this hearing and through this process.
Thank you, Kiana. Your students always do a great job. At each level, there are numerous opportunities for students to probe into matters through historical and contemporary issues by taking, defending, and evaluating their positions through research and discussion. At the high school level, elective courses and even AP courses use the We the People Level 3 text to prepare students for greater opportunities through civil discourse and research and discussion of the many issues related to current events, as well as an opportunity to compete in a state competition. I would like to introduce to you Jennifer or Jen Orlinsky from the Norwood Public Schools, who will discuss the many facets of civic education there. Jennifer?
Thanks, Roger, and thanks for having me here today. We are one of the school districts in the state of Massachusetts that actually uses We the People at all three levels, elementary, middle, and high school. And part of that is because of our recent work on the portrait of a Norwood graduate. I'd like to share with you some images that our student created. The image on the left is the portrait of a Norwood graduate as created for our elementary students, and the image on the right is the portrait of a Norwood graduate as created for our secondary students, but the message on both is the same. We call it the 5 C's, that we want all of our students to graduate to be collaborators, creators, communicators, critical thinkers, and citizens. And we put citizens 5th. However, that doesn't mean it's last, because there's this thread of citizenship that we have put throughout all of what it means to be a person in Norwood. So how did we define a citizen when we were working toward this? This goes across every single class, but we have really been stressing it within our elementary students, our middle school students, and our social studies classes in particular. It's the idea that all students can get involved in a positive way, that every student can contribute within all of their classes in a respectful manner. They can all engage in discourse responsibly, and that as a community, we have a responsibility to advocate for equity for everyone. So that's our citizenship. I was lucky enough recently to go observe a class in grade 5. We are in the midst of a curriculum review cycle, which I'm sure many people here are also in the midst of doing for elementary. And we're looking at a few options, but one of the things that we are committed to is continuing the We the People in grade 5. And this is an example of a project that a student completed for units 7 and 8. You can see that obviously everyone loves Liberty's Kids. They took the characters from Liberty's Kids and they embedded them into the unit there in order to create some student created materials where they show what happened at the Philadelphia Convention. Just in case anyone was going to ask, I did list the other things that we are looking at. But the point of the matter is we are continuing with We the People in grade 5. At the middle school level, it is the primary text for our grade 8 civics course. I did ask my students, my teachers rather, what else they utilize currently in order to ensure that kids are getting a well-rounded civics education. They listed off SHEG, iCivics, Newsella, the Bill of Rights Institute, and the resources found on the DESE website. And they use a combination of the We the People program and the iCivics program and the Civics Project Guidebook on the DESE website to complete the civics project. At the high school level, we are lucky enough to have a good friend of Roger's be our high school civics teacher. Ms. Molly Uppenkamp participates yearly in the We the People competition, and she does a phenomenal job bringing kids who are from very diverse backgrounds forward to that competition. They spend the first half of the year preparing for it. They compete every single year, and I'm always so impressed with what they do there. So that's just kind of an overview of how Norwood is embedding that civics thread throughout our entire curriculum, and we hope to continue to do more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. There's a lot going on in Norwood, developing some great young citizens in your community.
Thank you.
Another of our We the People offerings is Project Citizen, which addresses allowing students to getting involved in the participation, engagement process of government. We have two educators with us today who use or have used the program with their students who will explain Project Citizen to you. John Dixon from Monomoy Regional High School and Kathy Lindquist, retired from Danvers High School. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Roger. So I teach grade 8 civics at Monomoy Regional High School in Harwich. And I thought we'd start just by reviewing the state law that we're all operating under. And emphasize just a couple of points on this. Each school is required to have 8th grade and also at the high school, at least one student-led nonpartisan civics project. And whether they be done individually, in groups, or class-wide. And the goals of those projects are things that would mirror our school's our school goals and curricular goals for our civics course, to analyze issues, to compare points of view, to make logical arguments, to engage in civil discourse, and to make connections between the levels of government. So the Project Citizen has a guidebook that is nowhere near as thick as this one. And we haven't quite been able to figure out why this picture makes it look like it's this massive tome, but it's actually a fairly thin and very manageable book, illustration notwithstanding. And it does a good job of laying out a 10-step process, which I will summarize just quickly here. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but it's a well-defined process that culminates in a presentation that actually is very much in line with what Kiana is achieving with the simulated congressional hearing. So I'll go to the next slide. So at Monomoy, we embed this project into the curriculum, and we come back to it throughout the year. So we really, on day one, we brainstorm problems in our society, in our community, as a way to get them to start thinking about civics and why we're learning civics, and the role that government has to play in addressing problems in our society. So we start with a list, we build on that list, and then toward the end of second quarter, we do a little preliminary research and narrow that to 3, and then ultimately, for our 8 civics classes at Monomoy, each of them chooses one to pursue. And just as an example, my 4 classes this year are doing nitrogen pollution, climate change, adolescent mental health, and racism. So once they've identified a problem, then they research the problem and they identify potential policy goals. And by this, we mean something that they can ask and seek to influence their government in order to adopt. And then they choose one of those policies in order to actually try and get it done and develop an action plan. And then at the end, they prepare a presentation, which again has a lot of the similar qualities and impacts as what Kiana described. The emphasis on policy making, the goal of a citizen as being able to speak to and influence the government. And what we do in our project is try and time it so that we don't just draft an action plan, we have time to execute it. With mixed success, of course, you can't always, you're not going to bat 100% trying to get the government to adopt a particular policy, but we have had considerable success. I would emphasize the availability of help. Local officials, state legislators are always thrilled to be invited to come talk to a class, especially about a real policy issue. Especially about legislation or policies that are being considered. And in this Zoom, Google Meet age, it's the logistics of it are so much easier to be able to invite them into our classroom virtually if they're not able to come into it in person. And so just a few examples of the kind of policies that we have had success. We had a class get both of our local towns, we were Harwich and Chatham regional, and to ban plastic straws as a way to try and reduce plastic pollution. We got both our boards of health to ban flavored tobacco products as a way to combat vaping. And this was actually about 6 months before the state adopted a similar policy. And I think it's the next slide shows us the class that got a bridge. It's one of the bridges over Route 6 in town, named the Hidden Wounds Memorial Bridge as a way to recognize those veterans who are suffering from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder and other hidden effects of their service in the military. Just to give you a sense of how this can extend, that bridge ceremony, as you see, was from September. The students that did the project in 8th grade are now in 10th grade. So in addition to following the bill in 9th grade, the state bill that named the bridge, in 10th grade, they then hosted a ceremony to name the bridge that featured advocates for veterans from around the country. And it was a really powerful experience, and one that, of course, extended well beyond 8th grade, in this case, into 10th grade. So I am going to, with that as an overview of what we're able to do in 8th grade, I'm going to pass this off to Kathy Lindquist, who's going to talk about the project in high school.
Hi, and thank you, John. And I would say that everything that John laid out for what he does at the middle school, it really is mirrored and built upon at the high school level. And because people like you, John and Kiana, do such hard work at the middle school, it is possible to do a civics project outside the social studies classroom at the high school. So I'm an English teacher, or was, and I piloted a unit-based project citizen and found that it provided an unparalleled opportunity for project-based learning and practice of critical thinking, research, yes, writing skills for my junior American literature classes. I look at Project Citizen as being an opportunity to engage in meaningful research, writing, and collaboration. And that's because it empowers students to work collaboratively to be the change they really would like to see in their community. It offers an authentic and relevant experience in practicing and developing skills, presentation skills, writing skills, everything. When it comes to research, the research really focuses on 21st century skills and the all-important media literacy. Students also take the research beyond the library, and they conduct research through interviews, and they create and analyze data from surveys. So there's a lot of really good practical skills at play. So slide, please. Okay. How did that, I'm sorry, go back. So how did that pilot end up? Well, student engagement increased dramatically. Students presented their projects to teachers and administrators, which led to the curriculum director and my ELA colleagues making Project Citizen the Junior English Capstone Project. The bottom line here is that Project Citizen isn't only good for students, teachers really enjoy engaging with it as well. So after significant work and presentations, the students really helped achieve one of their goals, which was to have more elective options as they became seniors. And yes, students did ask for a Project Citizen focused elective for senior English. So This is what senior project citizen looks like at Danvers High School. It's a 3-quarter hybrid civics and ELA course, and it's now in its 3rd year. So it really connects to both civics and ELA frameworks for college preparedness. It's intended as the capstone course for the public service pathway at DHS. We all know that pathways are the way of the future. And it really builds the 21st century skills in civic discourse, research, writing, and presentation. As a bonus, it really helps prepare students for their senior internships during the 4th quarter. So before COVID, students were going to intern at the town hall and several local nonprofit agencies. But the big benefit of Project Citizen is it engages students in both their studies and in their communities. Thanks.
Thank you, John and Kathy. Obviously, your students, okay, have had great experiences. At Braintree Public Schools, Gorman Lee is working toward a civic education platform for the students there. I'll let him explain. Right, John? Right, Gorman?
Yes, thanks, Roger. So I was first introduced to the We the People program back in the mid-90s when I was an 8th grade teacher teaching US history and later American civics in Medford, Massachusetts. And one of the things I liked a lot about the We the People program was the comprehensive scope and nature of the content and the accessibility to the text. Since then, I've tried to incorporate the We the People program in the US history and government curriculum here in Braintree. So as I enter my 28th year teaching in the classroom and serving as K-12 curriculum director, I've come to appreciate the purpose of having a viable and rigorous civics education. And why is it important that every student must learn and practice civics every year from kindergarten to their senior year in high school and beyond? And so I generally look at the following questions as an approach to teaching and learning civics. How will the lesson activity and the assignment make students a better learner? How they be prepared for college and career? How will the lesson activity and assignments make students a better person, a better human being? I think this falls in line with, engaging in civil discourse. And how will these lesson activities and assignments make students a better citizen? Not only do students learn about the roles and rights, but their responsibilities as well. So at Braintree High School, we offer a semester-long elective civics course using the We the People program. This course is aimed to provide students general knowledge of civics by examining the historical and philosophical foundations and the principles of democracy and citizenship. And the lessons are designed to position the students to make sense of and apply these foundations and principles to real world situations, challenges, and problems, and how they, as active citizens in a democratic Republican society, can go about addressing and solving real world challenges through civil discourse and enacting change. So when the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education adopted the 2018 History and Social Science Curriculum Framework, we adjusted our grade 8 course, which was US history from colonial America to Civil War and Reconstruction, to the US and Massachusetts government and civic life. And we've incorporated We the People because we found this as an excellent supplemental resource. And we're now in the process of incorporating several lessons in the We the People throughout the 8th grade civic curriculum. So as John mentioned earlier in this webinar, a few months after the adoption of the 2018 frameworks, Governor Baker signed an act to promote and enhance civic engagement. Now it's his law, which requires Massachusetts public high schools and school districts serving 8th grade students to provide at least one student-led nonpartisan civics project. And so as we were moving forward with the civics project, we were looking to do a scaffold approach. So in Braintree, the 6 stages of the civics project begins in 6th grade in the middle school and 9th grade in the high school. Starting in the 6th and 9th grade, students will discover their civic identity by exploring major critical issues of the present day that are relevant to their current study in their social studies classes. Starting in 6th grade, at 9th grade, students create a digital portfolio on Google Drive where they will keep a series of assignments, presentations, and notes as they explore topics and eventually identify a particular focus for their civics project. So the idea is for students to start exploring, considering, and eventually identifying a potential focus for their civics project by the time they reach grade 8 and grade 11. So by the time students enter grade 8 and grade 11, they will identify their civics projects early in the school year, allowing the classes to incorporate selected lessons from both We the People and Project Citizens texts. Students will focus on developing their action plans and implementing their civics projects, probably between December and April or early May. And then in June, they would be reflecting and showcasing not only their civics project, but their experiences going through that process. Because as John had mentioned, sometimes, they push for a project and it does not succeed, but in other ways, they've succeeded because they've gone through the process. So we decided to take the scaffold approach because we wanted to provide students as much time as possible to explore topics and critical issues and expand time in the grades where students implement, reflect, and present, showcase their projects. We basically want to spread that responsibility across the grade span and not just in grade 8 and in grade 11. It also allows students to explore topics and critical issues at the national and global levels and be able to see the connections between the past and present, as well as the interconnections between people and places near and far. And so using the digital portfolios, students can maintain and track their progress, add notes and sources over the 3 to 6 year period from grade 6 to grade 11. So that's what we're doing in Braintree. And basically the slides that you see now is just kind of showing you a calendar, a pacing guide, if you will, for the middle school and for the high school. Thanks.
Roger, you got to unmute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Gorman, for an exciting scaffolding approach for all the students at Braintree. I want to thank all of the presenters for your time and your work, your dedication to civic education into your schools and bringing a sound, robust civic learning and engaging program to your young people is remarkable. Thank you very, very much. And I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. And I'd like to leave you with this final word, that whatever programs, materials, resources, that you use, please keep in mind that a civic-minded school district will develop better students overall. Thank you, everyone. And let me turn the program over to David.
Roger, thank you so much. You always have such a big vision for civic education. It's always so impressive to hear you. And I know many of you who just presented as well. And I think you're such a group of superstars in this area. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. And I think you've made such a case for the importance of civic education right across all of the grades, that students in the earliest grades can engage with this material, and certainly students up in the upper grades need this learning so much as they move on into their adult years. So thank you, all of you, for presenting this afternoon. I do want to take a minute here to just offer time for any questions that might have come up. So you can certainly include those in the chat, but also you're welcome to unmute yourself and simply ask a question here. So one question here, Bridget, I see your question here. Will this seminar be available as a video? It will be. It will be available on the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition site. For those of you who joined late, I've included a link here, and I will do that again right now. to all of the resources and the links for today's session. And that will give you access to information about how to access the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition site, where you can certainly register for future webinars, and you'll have access to this video as well as videos of previous webinars as well. Are there other questions? So Jacqueline, thank you for your question here. What are some of these districts using in conjunction with We the People? This addresses certain topics within DESE's social studies and history standards. Do you use multiple resources? And this is one. So what are some other sources that you use along with We the People?
I'm happy to address this one, Dave. If
Thanks,
you go
Jen.
back through the slide deck today, I actually listed some of the ones that we're using in our current realignment for K-5, as well as the other things we use in grade 8. And I will be 100% honest and say that I have an amazing high school staff who developed a completely textbook-free curriculum independently, using almost entirely primary sources.
And that's actually a trend these days. There are many districts that are going textbook free and using many of these other independent sources. And some of them are using certainly We the People as kind of an anchor for a lot of that work. So thank you, Jen.
And David, I'll give a plug, which you are not so shameless to do, which is that for iCivics. iCivics is an amazing resource and one that that we use extensively, because we also do not have a textbook, but iCivics does a great job of introducing topics and really giving us a jumping off point to then do further exploration of the subjects beyond the basics. That iCivics does a very good job of helping present.
Thank you, John. And I did not pay you to make that statement. So we are getting toward the end of our time here. And I just want to highlight a couple of things that I am taking away from this session. I was just really impressed by the scope of the type of practices and principles that you all highlighted in your work with We the People. Clearly, We the People is a core source for your teaching, but also you're using other sources. But I do think there are some principles that stand out above all of that that are worth noting particularly. So a couple of those are certainly be thinking about civics in terms of developmental stages and what is developmentally appropriate for students. But that is not to say that students in those younger grades cannot engage with this material. It's just how they engage with it. So some of the examples around literacy and using literature in those early grades are, I think, really strong examples of that. In addition, I think Roger was making the point, and some of the rest of you, about the importance of civics in terms of building school culture and students' character education as well. Certainly key pieces there. The focus on inquiry as a key piece, and certainly that's true in the standards for Massachusetts as well, of course. The building in of the experiential component that Kiana was talking about, that John was highlighting, that Kathy highlighted as well, around having students participating in doing speaking and presenting, as well as doing research and some of the more traditional things that we think about in our teaching particularly. And then of course, building critical thinking skills, focusing on equity. And we could do a whole session on that, I'm sure, around what you folks are doing around that issue. The use of media and engaging students with the use of video, as Jen was demonstrating in her video there. The focus on policy that John talked about, I think a really key piece around doing civics projects and thinking about how they connect to policy issues is a key component to really making meaningful projects happen. And then as Gorman so eloquently emphasized, as he's done so many times, is the importance of building a progression across the grades so that one grade is building from the next, I think is a key piece as well. And there are other pieces that we could highlight here, but I think those are sort of some summary ideas and principles that I'm taking away from your presentation that I hope other folks can learn from and build from in starting to build up their own civics programs in their own schools. So as we move on to closing here, I just do want to mention again, for those of you joined late, that the Massachusetts Civic Learning Coalition will be hosting Civic Learning Week, March 7th through 11th, coming up very soon, right after the vacation. And again, we've scheduled those and organized those particularly so that students will have an opportunity to participate. So there are sessions during the day as well as during after school hours. And there's a whole host of range of topics that I would invite you to investigate on our website. And again, the link for that is in that link and resource document that I referred to. We do have another webinar coming up this year. We may have others actually, but one scheduled right now with Discovering Justice on April 6th. And you can get registration information for that on our site as well. We're also very actively trying to recruit new members to the coalition. So I do hope you'll consider that as well. We particularly want organizations to join, but certainly individuals too. And we do have regular or at least periodic mailings to educators. So if you get on our mailing list, you'll be getting information about our activities. And there's information about becoming a member on our site as well. So last slide here, I would invite you to, as participants in this today, to please give us your feedback about this session. There's a link in that links and resource document again that will access our evaluation form that's useful in informing us and helping us plan future sessions. So if you take a few minutes to do that, we'd appreciate that. And again, feel free to, and I encourage you to register for updates on future webinars and future events here as well. So I want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon, Roger for organizing this, and for all of you who presented this afternoon. I won't go through the list of names, but thank you so much for your presentation, for the thoughtful thinking, and the work you do every day for students in our schools here. So we're going to wrap up and hope that we see all of you at a future webinar, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.